Yeah. All right, everybody, we are going to get started here. I want to welcome you all to the District 7 Legislative Coffee here, and good morning. I hope you're caffeinated. If not, there's plenty of coffee right over there. I'm Kirsten Jesdal. I'm the Community Development Director for the Brookings Regional Growth Alliance, and we have 3 other staff members in the room today, so if you have any questions, just grab one of us walking around. I want to thank Cool Beans Coffee for providing the beverages for today, so make sure to give them a shout out. I would especially call out that this is a coffee specifically made for this, and so if you look at the beautiful label that's right above the coffee pot, it's really gorgeous. I'd also like to thank city staff, especially Kwaku, for being here on a Saturday. And if you haven't been to this event before, as you see, there's coffee over there. There's slips of paper on this side of the room with pens, so you can write your questions on there. If there's a specific bill that you're interested in, you can write the name number down for that. And then staff members will kind of be wandering around and can grab them from you, or you can go set them back on the table there. We'll compile them, hand them off to our great moderator here, and get some great feedback from our legislators. If you missed something and want to rewatch this, it will be rebroadcasted multiple times, and when those are broadcasted is listed up on our website, and it will also be recorded and available on YouTube early this next week. I'm going to hand things over to Don Norton now to take it from here.
Well, thank you very much, Kirsten, and welcome, everybody. Good to see all these smiling faces this morning. I appreciate the accessibility of our legislators, and I appreciate your interest in these issues. And we're going to show everyone how issues can be discussed in the spirit of civil discourse this morning. Please silence your cell phones, could you? If it rings, you can head out in the hall and take your call, but in the meantime, we'll get some issues talked through. Thanks to Cool Beans, you know what they say, without coffee, there is no legislative coffee. I'm going to take 3 minutes and ask our legislators to introduce themselves. We have Melissa Heerman, Representative, Roger DeGroot, Representative, and Senator Tim Reed. So let's start with Melissa.
Thank you, and thank you so much for the opportunity to come speak today, and also the fantastic coffee. It was a real joy to be able to bring a special house blend to the House of Representatives from our very own Cool Beans Coffee, so that was exciting. Melissa Heerman, and this is my 4th session that I've been serving in. Prior to that, I served on the Brookings School Board and then also served in Lake Preston as the City Council and also as Mayor. I have 3 children, all went through the Brookings School District. One is now headed off to college, and I currently work as the Director of the Revenue Cycle at the Brookings Health System. I'm very excited this year, and I'm sure we'll dig into bills a little bit more deeply, but very excited this year to be bringing some bills that will help provide additional protections for the elderly and the vulnerable, some protections from scamming, and also just some safeguards for the elderly who have home health agencies, non-medical, entering into their homes. So we can dig more into that later, but I'm cautiously optimistic.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. Tim Reed. I serve as the state senator here for Brookings, District 7. I've been involved in representing the people of Brookings for many years. I spent 13 years in local government, 8 as the mayor of Brookings, and now I'm in my 10th year in the legislature. I spent 6 years in the House of Representatives, and now I'm in my 4th year in the state Senate. And right now I serve on Health and Human Services, and then I chair the local government committee. A couple things that I'm working on this year. I've got a bill that has to do with how hospitals manage when a sexual assault victim presents themselves at the ER. It's a very interesting situation because it's half medical and half evidence collecting, And we just want to make sure that things are done right. And there are some hospitals that can't do this and totally understand just because of resources and such, but then what do you do? Is what this bill is about. Just another one, I've been active with emergency medical services also. I co-chaired the interim committee. We've got a couple bills that came out of there to help that make sure nurses can be in the ambulances, and then and they always could. We just needed to get it clarified in law to make sure that there was no liability that they had to worry about. And then also on the drivers, they were having to go through special training, extra training, when at times, they were like volunteer firefighters or police men and women, and they should be able just to drive those vehicles. But one of the more important ones is, and we've got it through the Senate, and that's to have another task force this summer to figure out how can we make it an essential service. And believe it or not, ambulance is not considered, emergency medical services is not considered an essential service in South Dakota. And so, but we got to figure out how to fund it. And that's what this task force will be specifically designed to do, to say, figure out how to fund it to make it an essential service. I think that's very important. And then I think those are kind of the highlights of some of the bills that I am. Oh, I had one other one, Senate Bill 93, that's made its way through the Senate also. And what this one said is if a state employee has the authority over or very influential on a contract being awarded, right now over $1 million is supposed to, you wait 1 year before, I'm sorry, anytime you wait at least 1 year before you can go to work for that company. And I wanted to go for a longer period of time if it was a larger amount. A lot of this stems from around the situation with CJ Foods. The person that has been reported about doing this did everything lawfully. I just think in the future we need to change that. And then also there's a way so we don't get an employee kind of caught up in it that really didn't have a lot of influence, to make sure that there's a way that they still can go to work for a company, because you should be able to move around in the job. So that one made it through the Senate, should be in the House here as soon as we probably get past crossover day. And that's something we are approaching as crossover day. It's next, it's not this coming week, but the week after. And that's where we got to get all the bills through committee and through the respective originating chamber, so they can be done on the other side. And so that can get kind of crazy when, as you've all heard, we've got a lot of bills to get through. So it'll be a busy couple of next 2 weeks.
Over 500 bills this year, I think I heard.
Yeah, it's getting close to 600.
Close to 600, wow. Roger.
Good morning, everyone. I'm glad to see so many people here this morning. I'm Roger DeGroot. Everybody in here probably knows my background, but I have over 40 years in education as a teacher, a coach, elementary principal, middle school principal, superintendent, and then finally as a school board member here in the Brookings School District. I'm in my second term, my fourth year, and I sit on House Education. We call that committee the 8-7 committee. That's how the votes come out of there. And Melissa and I both sit on that committee. And I also sit on local government. It's been an interesting session, and maybe we'll get into that as we move forward. But there's been some disturbance in some of the committees, and some committee members have already been punished and taken off of committees and moved to other committees. One person that even got punished for being out of order on the House floor. I'm going to back up a little bit. We always introduce our wives when we're out at Pierre, and good representative from Flandreau, his wife, they've been married 54 years, and my wife happened to be out there this week, and I upped him a little bit. I said 55 years in August. So anyway, my wife and I have been married for 55 years in August. We have 3 kids. One lives in T, one lives in Worthing, and our son lives in Chicago. And we have 9 grandkids, so we don't get to see the ones in Chicago as often as the ones that are close. My interest, as you can probably figure out, is in education. And juvenile justice is another area that really interests me, and another one is behavior health, not mental health anymore. It's behavior health of students in the primary grades all the way through high school. But sat on a large, I'm going to wrap this up real quick. I sat on a large committee this summer that dealt with juvenile justice, another one that had some superintendents, some lobbyists, and some legislators on there. And I've been out of the business for 9 years. and I was shocked at what has happened in the schools with behavior. And it's really complicated why it did happen. We took some guardrails off in 2015 with a bill and didn't fund the bill, but that's kind of complicated. But hopefully with this money that the federal government came out with grants, we can put some things together so we can work with those parents and those students. I ran a fishing guide bill, and I won't get into that, but if you've watched the commercial on TV where that guy has holes in him, that's kind of how I felt when I got done with my fishing guide bill. It's a good bill. I kind of got after Game Fish and Parks about it. I've talked to the Wildlife Federation about it. They're all in favor of it. I'm going to wrap this up, but I'm going to be priming an extraordinary cost bill for special ed on the House side, and that deals with special ed and overruns of costs for special ed for districts. And certainly we're all going to be working on this one. The 0% for state workers, health workers, and education. And there's so many bills out there that deal with it. And of course, we'll get into the property tax, and we'll talk about all this stuff later. But anyway, thanks for being here this morning.
Well, thank you very much. I'd like to start the ball rolling a little bit, just asking, when do I get my property tax lowered? Is it today or tomorrow? Which bill is coming out front and center? Is there going to be any relief this session?
I think there's 60, someone counted, different bills that have to do with property taxes. We had the summer interim study committee on it, and that also had 20-some bills come out. They're ideas. They weren't even really bills because they didn't get as far enough through bills. So what we're dealing with is we've got just so many ideas that are being put out. And of course, then you have competition for those ideas. And, it's I don't know what we're going to get to, if we're going to get to anything. I think it was interesting just on Friday that there's a bill, we lowered the sales tax from 4.5 for the state to 4.2. And then that sunsets here next year. And so the idea behind that and I was part of this that we fought for, is to say, we don't know what's going to happen. Right? Well, now we're starting to know what's going on, and we're very concerned about as Representative DeGroot talked about, we're very concerned about teacher pay, the Medicaid reimbursement rate, and state employees, what they're able to be paid. It's at 0 right now because we haven't had much growth, and so that there was a competing element with that. This bring this back to property tax that said, well, let's not sunset it, but then let's go ahead and sunset it, but then let's put the funds into a property tax relief fund. So now you see where it's the issues are getting convoluted, throughout this, and that's why it's so hard to get to something. I hope we find some things. I think there are some ideas out there. The one hopefully will bubble to the top, but there's so much noise in the system right now. It's really hard to kind of figure out what we'll really have in the end.
Mm-hmm. Any other comments? Property tax? Relief, reform.
I thought I knew the number, but I don't have it here. It's going to be in committee on Thursday. I think it's 1308 or something like that. But anyway, before I get into that, we are going to look at so many property tax proposals and how to reduce property tax, and it's what we're going to do is, if we're going to do anything, it's going to be a shift. You're going to shift it from one area to another area. And what I'm telling you folks today is that on the House side, and I believe on the Senate, I hate to speak for the senator here, but it's going to be really difficult to get 60% of the body to vote for anything. Mm-hmm. The last one that I heard of the governor has his out there, of course, and then the one that's going to be dropped on Thursday, and I think it's out, so I don't think I'm talking out of school here, but it'll increase that 4.3 to 5 sales tax, and this was just a rough blush of it. And then if you have a $500,000 owner-occupied home, your taxes will go down 29 to 31%. That's a substantial decrease in homeowner and property taxes, but we're a long ways, and there's a lot of details, and there's probably going to be a bunch of amendments added and withdrawn, and Anyway, it's that will be, along with the data centers, I think the two big issues are out there this year.
I would just add one additional complicating factor is that it's a campaign year. There's a gubernatorial campaign. I think that has only maybe contributed to even a smaller chance of us passing something. There's so many different perspectives on it. The property tax bill that wins would be quite a victory for someone. And so there's these underlying currents around the property tax bills as well, and I think they are particularly susceptible to that influence.
While we're on this topic of the number of bills in the legislature, somebody put forward this question. During your time in the legislature, has there been any discussion of limiting the number of bills that are introduced? Do you think there's a workable way to do it? They do it in other states. And since we have a finite time that the legislature meets in South Dakota, what about a certain number of bills could be put forward by, or on a topic, or by a committee? Any talk about this? Because it seems that there are more and more bills each year.
Go ahead.
This is certainly the most bills I've ever seen. We have had some very preliminary conversations around, do you have different deadlines? Maybe you have, the governor's bills, the department bills, and you have different deadlines, at least to stagger it. What we are finding is, because of the high volume, we are putting an overwhelming burden on our LRC staff. And they do a tremendous job for us, but they have a just huge mountain to climb in the amount of requests, the amount of amendments, and changes to get through. I think I saw a draft that was over 1,009. So that means that the LRC staff has at least touched, drafted, edited over 1,000 items so far for this legislative session. I just think that's too much to be able to expect can be done with a high level of intentionality and detail and accuracy. It's just too much with the staff we have.
There are too many bills out there. Something needs to be done, and we're understaffed with LRC, and we had a proposal in front of us, and they are requesting some more help. But in this year, with zero money out there, that might not happen. There is a complaint that the executive branch waits too long to have their bills drafted, and maybe I'm not in favor of this, but there might be something drafted that the administrative body needs to take their bills early, so when we get there. And there's some examples of some people who have been waiting for bills for like 3 months. I never had that problem. I communicate, about every other day with the person writing my bill, and they get right back to me. So it might be just the person that's writing the bill. I'm telling you, folks, there's so many bills out there, and what is happening is that we have a consent calendar, and we might have 15 bills that got killed in committee by no opponent testimony. It comes out 15-0 in the House and the Senate side, and it only takes one member to pull it off the consent. We've had people pull. Yesterday, we dealt with 4 consent bills that got pulled off by one person, another pulled person. So our leadership is trying to deal with that. And the point is, I think we need to put some guardrails in place, just like your question said. We're going to be meeting Wednesday afternoon for extra committee meetings so we can take care of these bills and get them on the floor. But, yeah, that's a good question, and something really needs to be done.
Yeah, not a lot of time for debate on some of these bills.
Right, and they don't get a fair hearing at times, too. You're down to 10 minutes, opponent and proponent, a lot of times in committee. And that's not a lot of time, especially for a major topic. And I agree that we've got to figure something out here because it's overstressed on our staff. It's just overstressed on everyone. I tell a story there. I had a lobbyist that had an issue with my bill, and they're explaining, and this is a very good person, always on top of things. And finally, I had to say to him, "Did you read the whole bill?" "Well, maybe not." But there's just so much coming at you that all of a sudden you don't have the attention on it. Now, the other side of this, and it's something we've always been proud of in South Dakota, is that every bill gets a hearing, right? And then we are able to, if anyone in this room, comes to us and says, "This is a bill that I'd like to see happen," we can carry that bill forward. But we all of a sudden start saying to you, well, no, that's too many. That's going to be kind of an issue. We've always prided ourselves on that. So there cannot be any system, I don't think, in South Dakota where like you have pocket vetoes and such, or committee chairs just slip it in their pocket and nothing gets done. But we are being really stressed with our Legislative Resource Council, and somehow we got to get people to understand that some of these bills that just go down, in 20 minutes, 7-0, or 0-7, however you look at it too. Hopefully, those people start to figure out that those are bills that you really shouldn't be bringing, right. But they seem to keep coming around year after year.
Let's pivot a little bit here to education funding. Governor Roden said no increase, but you hear these news stories that there might be a little movement on that. What are you hearing? What's going to happen in your words? And the other thing is some proposal would require an election on school districts to exceed their property tax limits. There's a lot of workarounds kind of coming out. Where is this all headed? So,
yes, there's been different areas where funding's being talked about. There's our current property tax collections have been higher, and so there's some hope there that we can revise our revenue numbers up. That might do it. There's also talk of some one-time things that maybe we can do. But I think there is, I'm feeling a pretty good general consensus that we should be able to, get to 1%, 1.5%, or something at least. A lot of people would like to do that. One of the discussions surrounding this is our reserves have gotten quite high, and they're at 12.5%. And the question is, should we leave them there? And I think the minimum we have to have is 10%. The minimum is 10%, but those are one-time funds. Now, maybe we can do some one-time things like insurance or some things that we can help the school districts with, because we are doing that for the state employees. They're going to have some help with insurance and such. But we just got to remember that money's not going to be there again. And when we have this fight about you should keep it at 12.5% because it's even going to get worse. It's the same thing all over again. It's just one-time funds. It's not going to get you out of your continuous bills that you have, the things you have to pay. So I do believe there's a chance, but it's going to be hard to find, and probably is going to end up being quite the battle.
Wow.
Just like in a school district, when you get to the end of the year, you probably will have a little bit of your ongoing expense money, general fund monies left over. And when you get to that goes into a reserve account. Anyway, at the state level, same thing happens. Different offices and agencies don't spend their dollars down, so there's money left over at the end of the year. That reverts into one-time monies. We call it a capital, though. It's a reserve fund. That's reserve fund. Anyway, the governor wants to increase that by 2.5%. He wants to go from 10% to 12.5%, and that's about a little over $60 million. And originally I thought, boy, there's our money, because for every 1% of given the big three, they get that's cost us about $25 or $26 million. So I'm thinking, well, $60 million, that takes care of 2% of that increase. Well, that gets reverted into one-time monies. Brian Mulder, a House member, has a bill out there, and I can't remember the number on it, but instead of reverting that money into one-time monies, he wants to revert it into next year's budget and use it in next year's budget. So that $62 million, instead of going into the reserves, it will go into ongoing expenses of next year. It hasn't even gone through committee yet. And what that bill does, it gets 30% to educators, 30% here, and 40% here. I like the bill. I'm going to work with him on that bill. I'm going to try to get that bill through. But again, one-time monies, maybe some bonus monies that will go out. We need to do something. And there's a flavor out there to do something. It's not like we're sitting out there, no, we're not going to give you anything. And my superintendent friends were out there this week, and I said, we're going to give you something. I just don't know where it's going to come from, whether it's bonus money and one-time money and help with insurance costs and those kinds of things.
Sure. Any other thoughts, rumblings that you're hearing? Very good. Data centers, a big issue. Big concrete buildings that take a lot of energy and a lot of water. And some of our surrounding states have offered tax incentives to bring data centers there. And how about South Dakota? What are we going to do? Oh, it's like throw it to the senator, right? You know, have you noticed this? There's a lot of, oh, I'll let Tim answer.
I love you guys. So yeah, this is a very interesting, complex issue because, and I believe there's two things going on with it. One of them is AI in general. You know, this is such a disruptive technology. And so people are questioning, you know, where does this end up in our world, right? And then we know we've to accomplish for these data centers that there is a high power usage for them. And a lot of times technology can fix, you know, you get better and better, just like computers have gotten better and better, technology's moved along. Power is power, you know, and while you have some things that you can do, these things just really take a lot of power to run. And then, of course, the heat aspect of it and having to cool. Now, again, technology is getting better there, where they're starting to use closed loop, just like your radiator in your car, where where you're pumping a fluid through that actually goes out. Now, one thing I'll say is we're always complaining South Dakota's last in everything we do. This is a good place to be last if we decide what we're going to do, because the technologies have been moving along. There's been a lot of mistakes, I believe, made all over the United States on these data centers. And so if we're going to do it, we're going to have to make sure that it doesn't take water and that we actually have the power that is not going to raise the cost to us, right? We've seen that around the country. And the one up in North Dakota, actually, because they had spent so much money on the capacity, right? So power companies, anytime you build your capacity, you build it more than you need. You have to, right, for scale. Otherwise, if you just do additions every so often, it's very costly. And then we end up paying for that because, you know, over time we'll use it up. Well, up in Ellendale, what happened is they had a power transmission line that people were paying for because it's going to come through your bill. And when this company come along, they said, well, geez, you're going to be using up that capacity. And so you guys get to pay for that capacity. Now the user doesn't. So that's why I believe we can do some things over here. As far as incentives, one of the problems with the bill that I have is it was a tax exemption, right? And we use, and the city of Brookings has used, and the state has used before, where we do tax rebates, right? And sometimes you have a little more control on those than just a flat-out exemption. You know, for example, parts for farm machinery. You know, we fix our car, we don't have to pay taxes on it. Farm equipment, we do have to pay taxes on parts for our cars. The farmers don't have to pay taxes on their parts, right, for egg. So that's more of an exception, and I don't know if that's the best way of actually doing this. You want to make the community have the decision whether they want to do it, and I think you also want the state to make sure that it also fits in. So there's a lot of work to be done here. I don't think we can just bury our head in the sand on it. It's coming. It also has to do with our economic for the whole United States on how we do this. But we got to make sure that we're doing it the correct way.
May not be something this legislative session. Huh?
I think that we're going to see something about water and power consumption. I think that's important. Make sure that we're protecting the ratepayer. I think that will happen. I also think there's concerns on, you know, how do we manage water? I mean, if it is one that's using, you know, water, you know, does it work? Are we discharging an aquifer, or what system, right? I mean, we're lucky here in Brookings. We got a great aquifer, and it provides us with all this great water. But what would happen if you did all of a sudden pull all that water out? I think the community would really have to get involved and say, no, that water's for us to drink, and, you know, and for our lives in general in the community.
Mm-hmm. Melissa?
Yeah, I would just add, every data center is set up differently. And so I think the devil's always in the details, right? When they came and talked to us about, oh, we have closed loop now, and they discussed all the power usage and the, you know, light pollution, all the things that they can do to remedy any of those concerns, that all sounds really great. But then it has to be the data center that comes here that has those attributes, right? And so it's all about the details. Could we bring a data center in that would only help us with property taxes and economic development and not create these problems? Absolutely. But it would have to be the right one. And so when Tim is talking about those details and squaring away some of that ahead of time and being cautious, I think that's prudent, right? The other maybe concern is I don't know that we would have the voting power to get anything significant through this session related to data centers because I don't know that there's enough information around it. I also think that there's just an underlying fear of AI overall. The other day I was sent a screenshot of maybe 2 really angry AI bots fighting with each other and kicking humans out of the discussion or something, and they're going to start their own language and kick us out. And it's just an interesting thing that's developing in real time around us. So I think if there was ever a time to be cautious and do it right, that time is now. I don't know that we have the voting power to do anything significant from my perspective right now.
Roger.
Just add a few things. I just read the paper before I came, and I've read what the four people that run for governor had to say about it, and they can't agree on it. So you can imagine what 70 people in the House of Representatives and 35 in the Senate can agree or can't agree on. I tell you, Representative Rowe wrote the bill up. He's from up north here. That deals with that dual county facilities when he's working with, but the bill deals with everything. That bill failed last week in committee, quite substantially. But as the good representative said, it's very fluid. It's real time, things happening around us. I talked to Representative Rowe on my way here today to get the latest, and there's a process called a smoke out where if you don't get it done in the committee, you can take it to the floor and you can smoke it out. Well, he doesn't want to smoke it out, but there are various factions within our House, not just Democrats and Republicans, but the Republicans are split probably 3 different ways. Representative Rowe actually has been working with somebody in one of the other, I'll just say the other part of the Republican Party, and they're going to bring an amendment. So there might be some chance, because we're dealing with 2 different factions in that party, that we bring that forward and at least get it on the House floor for discussion. If that doesn't happen, there's a bill over in the Senate that's still out there that they're going to probably try to work through the Senate and get it over to the House. But we're working hard on that. There's a lot of misinformation out there. I've tried to educate myself as much as possible. The water thing I thought was going to be an issue, but they tell me it's not. It's a closed system. Electricity, the big companies are paying for the infrastructure to build it. So those are some things I was really concerned about, and we'll keep an eye on it as we move forward, because it's right there, and we will deal with that Monday when we walk in the door.
Okay. Hard to believe, but we have reached the halfway point of our legislative coffee. We're still taking questions. A reminder that this program will be rebroadcast on Swiftel Channel 20 and Mediacom Channel 9 tonight at 9 p.m. and Sunday and Monday at 6 p.m. and next week on the Chamber YouTube channel. So you'll have a chance to go back and take copious notes and then hold our legislators to everything that they said today. So that's good. And I do have a good note here from Mayor Ope that said, just a comment. He was in Pierre past week and was approached by numerous times from other legislators who complimented our legislators, that we're fortunate to have such quality people there. So there you go. It's not all bad news, is it? But then, yeah. I do want to touch one other thing on data centers, because we did get this question in. What is the job employment impact of a data center? Has that come up? I mean, we have what, a 2% unemployment rate, which, I used to do some work with the Bureau of Labor Statistics. If it's anything under 3%, it's virtual employment. Everybody who has a job or wants a job has a job at 3%. So if we're at 2%, what is the job impact, and could we even meet it, I suppose, is one of the questions.
You want me to go ahead?
You'll go ahead.
Yeah. So they are not big job creators, okay, the numbers of jobs. The jobs are good that they create, right? But, I guess, there are times when you have jobs that are not going to pay as well, right? But you have a lot of them. Here you don't have a lot, but they do pay well. They use the trades that we have here. Obviously, DSU does a great job with cybersecurity and such. They have to have backup, all these diesel generators. We have Diesel Tech. That's a good program. A good program that we have like up in Watertown and such. Electricians, these are continuously having to be worked on. And then the HVAC, those plumbers kind of together, because as they start talking about these closed loop systems, there's a lot more work there too that has to be done to maintain these. So they do create those types of jobs. The initial impact is huge for a community. Aberdeen is really doing well because of what's going on in North Dakota right across the border. And so you have that initial economic, and then you get the tax, the property tax from a huge, and then you also we tax power in South Dakota. And so you get those kind of benefits also. So you got to balance this all out. What is it worth in the amount of money that you're giving, in incentives? And, I spent a couple years with the BEDC as a CEO, and then as I was involved in local government, I've always been, working on economic development issues. And so I think it's important to look at what's the big picture for economic development. You can't just focus on jobs.
Thank you very much. I want to touch on, Roger, did you want to talk about that?
I just got this from the representative. I've been communicating with him because he's the one that has the facts, and that's what I like to deal with, facts. And when I say this, we'll go on recording. But what he tells me that it will create 200+ jobs ongoing, full-time, at $65,000 per. Billbrook School District will be a huge benefactor. Again, you'd have to fact check this, but he says that Sully Buttes, there's one of these out in western South Dakota. That's Sully Buttes gets $800,000 more in aid from that facility.
Wow. A couple of questions that have been called in. Let's call this the lightning round. So if this were a game show, quick answers, thoughts on this. I think it's SCR 604, which I think is a resolution. Right to prayer. Is this really a priority? 604? SCR 604?
Thank you. This is a Senate concurrent resolution, so it's passed both houses. It has both chambers. Okay, lightning round. No. And I guess what I'll add is it's a resolution, right? It's encouraging something. So I think it also, and I voted against it, I don't tell anybody how to pray. I don't tell anybody how to do their religion. I don't care if it's just a resolution, So I felt that it just needed to kind of go away.
Okay. Melissa?
Excuse me. I can speak to this too. I think Roger was out this day, so I don't think that you were around for that vote. So we did have this vote, which turned into one of the ugliest moments of the session at that time, which is saying something this year. When I originally spoke to the prime sponsor, Representative Randolph, in the House, his intent was so pure. He really was talking about the founding fathers and, how democracy only works, if the people are moral and all of these things. And, it is a resolution, and it states in there, it's just an encouragement that around the 250th, we take time to think about what our country was founded on, and we pray for our country. And as I go around the community, there's not a lot of people that are thinking that prayer wouldn't help the country right now. What I will tell you is debate got so ugly on this that there's some people up in the gallery to watch this play out. I changed my button probably 4 times on this one. And at the end of the day, we get these bills, and you have a green button and you have a red button, and you have to press one. And I do pray over a lot of my votes, and so I voted green that day. And I didn't vote green to intentionally hurt or make anybody feel bad. And in the moments I considered red because of the ugliness that played out, the complete lack of decorum, the complete lack of leadership holding anyone accountable for those comments that day. At the end of the day, I did vote green. I do pray, and I would encourage that we could pray for our country moving forward. So I did vote green.
You know, I thought I was having a senior moment. I didn't know what he was talking about. He looked it up. I wasn't there. I was back in Brookings last Wednesday and Thursday, so I didn't vote on it. But it did cross quite an issue on the floor. And again, the gentleman that brought it he's a very sincere person, and most people that vote for those things are just, it really has no weight. It's just, you get to express your feelings, so.
Yeah. I think that was in the news that somebody got in trouble for what they said. And
Can I add one thing
Yep.
to that? Here's the deal. Getting in trouble has a lot of definitions, right? I would suggest a punishment of being removed from caucus for 2 weeks. It feels a little more like a gift to me some days. But certainly in this case, the punishment did not fit the crime, in my opinion.
well, there you go.
Well, can I just add something to that? And we said we might get into this part of it, or at least I did earlier on. But the gentleman that caused that incident also caused the one in-house, Ed, that Melissa and I were right there in the middle of it. The chair came in and reassigned people, seats from last year, first meeting of the year, her right completely. Yep. One person refused to move, and that person was in my chair. And I asked her to move, and she refused to move. Anyway, then the other gentleman got involved in it, and then finally somebody that's way smarter than I am said, we need to take this out of in front of the public, and we went into a private room. And that particular incident, I will tell you that I thought the leadership did an outstanding job. We had our speaker there, and we had our leader there within 2 minutes. They dealt with the issue. They removed him from the committee, and I'm telling you what, it's amazing. I should know this, but if it could be in education, but they removed that disruption from that committee, and you can agree with me or not, but this committee is operating way better than it did before. It's fantastic. And I'm not going to weigh in whether or not I would like to be removed from caucus for 2 weeks too, maybe a month. But anyway, the leadership really do have their hands full with the divide of the Republican Party.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I think we have failed, however, with the lightning round concept. But here's another one. House Bill 1184. What are your positions on this bill? Define a man and a woman and prohibit funding to the contrary. 1184.
Yeah, happy to. Unfortunately, I haven't looked at this bill at all yet, and I don't even know if it's scheduled for committee. My instinct is I'll probably be against it. I just have no idea what's in it, so I need to at least read the bill.
Okay.
I did take a quick look at it. I know someone asked me a question or something about it, so I've looked it up. I am against it because I don't see what it does, really. I mean, I think has been talked about. The prime of this is running for governor, and I think it's one of those bills that the governor politics is playing into.
Yep.
I don't know enough about it to even comment on it. I'm sorry.
Okay. House Bill 1147. Is there any chance for funding for feeding South Dakota in light of federal cuts? Discussion of funding feeding South Dakota.
You know, on all these funding pieces, I don't think we're really going to know till we get to the very end and we look at all the pieces together. And so it's going to take a little bit longer. I would say maybe even 3 more weeks before we get a solid number and we can see, okay, this is the realistic pot of money we have. here is all of the asks that have been approved through to appropriations, right? And then we have to mesh those and decide what can happen and what can't happen. So is there an opportunity for it to? I don't know what the financial ask is on this particular bill. Sure, there is an opportunity. As we discussed, those dollars are very limited, so it's going to go up against their list of all the other asks. And if it's a one-time ask, it would be going up against potentially that one-time bonus or gift or opportunity for the big three. And so is there a chance? Sure, it's going to have to be vetted.
But it's not going to be annual funding. That's probably what you're saying for sure, right?
I don't know. I haven't read through the bill if it's one time or.
Okay, thank you very much. Yep. Let's move on to questions about funding for tourism and promotion. Is that top of mind in the funding realm here? You know, we hear the statistics of how many people come to South Dakota and spend a bunch of money.
I haven't heard anything. I guess the other legislators can chime in, but there's been no discussion that I know of.
Okay.
Can I say something?
Yep.
With the amount of bills that are out there, it's impossible for us to read all the bills. It just can't be done. So what we do, we rely on the committees to really dig into it, listen to the testimony, et cetera. So if we don't know what's going on in some of these bills, we haven't even been in front of us. If it's been in front of us, then we've had an opportunity, and sometimes they don't even make it out of committee, so we don't get to hear the discussion on the House floor.
Mm-hmm. Tax increment financing districts. Are you considering changes to how TIF districts are reviewed and authorized and what the funds can be used for?
Lightning round answer is yes. It matters who we is, right? There are several bills. Matter of fact, when you hear one here in local government about do you vote on almost all of the tax increment financing districts? You know, it's been an item that's gotten under fire in certain areas, right? So the question's going to be here, and a good example is Rapid City. I don't know if everybody's following what happened in Rapid City, and it got voted down handily. I want to say it was voted down 60-40, I think, maybe a little more than that. There are places in there for the community to speak up, and so I don't want to do anything TIF-wise that when it's working for a community, that should slow them down in what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And so what happened in Rapid City, the system worked. Community didn't like it. They got rid of it. I think that's where our system's working. Are there some tweaks? I know we get real technical stuff here, but like overlapping TIF districts. You know, I don't know if that's a wise thing to do, right? So there are some things that I think everybody agrees that we should probably look at that shouldn't happen statewide. But a lot of these bills are, you know, different areas that are mad at that they ended up with a TIF they didn't want.
Mm-hmm. Melissa, you mentioned safeguards for the elderly. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, happy to. So I have a couple of pieces of legislation around that. The first being today, if it's a home health agency that's non-medical, there are no regulations around that at all at the state level. And so what that means is we had a situation here within our district where there was a woman who was living independently and had somebody come into their home to do some work, and it ended up turning into a pretty bad situation because it was a bad actor. This person had previous, you know, time in prison, previous issues with the law, and so had there been a stop at some point to at least do a background check, that wouldn't have occurred, right? So my ask, is that we at least do a background check and at least require some training for those non-medical home health agencies in South Dakota. I think it's the very first step to try to protect our elderly and vulnerable in that way. It is getting some opposition from the governor's office. they are saying they don't have enough FTE to do it. So if that ends up being the case and I have to put on a fiscal note with an appropriation, I think it hurts the chances a little bit, but we're going to continue battling that. I think it's too important not to, so continue to bring that forward. The other piece I'm really excited about has to do with being scammed over the phone. So Nebraska and some other states have regulations and already in place that will protect you in this situation. So a scammer calls you and says, you know, whatever terrifying thing, you know, we have your kid or your grandson's in trouble or whatever it is. Their first attempt is to isolate you, terrify you, and make sure that there's some kind of time-sensitive need that you need to act on before communicating with anyone else that can help you and protect you. The only place in that process between them being terrified by a bad actor and losing their entire, you know, all the funds in their account is the bank. What Nebraska has done is they've allowed a liability waiver for the banks to put a pause on a large withdrawal if they have seen the signs of someone being scammed. And I have people that are very dear to me in Nebraska that this has saved. And in fact, that it has been so successful in Nebraska when I was talking with their legislature and their legal counsel that they're actually bringing more legislation to try to make it stronger in order to protect more people. We don't have any regulation around that today. So that's the second bill that I'm bringing. I have the banking industry working alongside me with this bill, and the impact of the number of people that it could end up protecting would be exponential. So I'm very excited about bringing that bill forward and cautiously optimistic.
Very good. Roger, I saw you on the news the other night, and you were not happy about a bill that had to do with licensing, for lack of a better word, outfitters, the people that take you on the fishing. Yeah. What happened there?
Well, it's a kind of a long story, and I'll try to abbreviate it because we're running out of time. But I was approached 2 years ago, last year, to write a bill that dealt with licensing of fishing guides.
Right.
And not the Game Fish and Parks, but I worked with the Game Fish and Parks, but the Wildlife Federation convinced me to do outfitters and hunting guides as well, and boy, that just didn't work out well at all. So this year, I rewrote it just for fishing guides. And it still didn't work out real well. But what it really did was, up in the northeastern part of South Dakota, we have a lot of small lakes. And what's going on is there's a machine called a snow bear, and it's a tracked vehicle. It's a tracked motorized ice house is what it is, and these guys have live scopes, etc. Long story short, there's a lot of guides up there taking the natural resources out of the lake without any kind of guidance, any kind of license or anything. So what I did is I wrote a real simple bill. It cost $150 for in-state people to get a license, and they have to have $1 million worth of liability insurance, which they should have anyway if they're taking people out in boats and snow bears, etc. But it's obvious that the governor doesn't like this bill because he sends Game Fish and Parks down there and to talk the bill down. Of course, whenever you bring something new in, it creates an issue. And what I told the people a couple days ago, Game Fish and Parks really came up and took a bill apart, sentence by sentence, line by line, and I just concluded my testimony by saying something to the fact that, there's an issue there. Instead of tearing my bill apart, line by line, the Game Fish and Parks should be sitting up next to me telling me how to fix this problem. The problem is bigger than Roger DeGroot. It's bigger than one representative to do it. The Game Fish and Parks have the ability to go out there and hold stakeholder meetings and do those kinds of things. They have done nothing to do those kinds of things. And anyway, there's another bill over the Senate side that's kind of like it. But I'm sure that'll meet the same demise. But I'm probably done with it for now. I don't seem to be getting a lot of traction with it. But there needs to be something done because they're taking our natural resources. And what I said, there's not going to be fish in those lakes for my grandkids. But anyway.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Other issues that come up to mind? How we getting a soccer field, Tim?
Yeah, I'm carrying the bill for the university. They've got land that they've been using for the soccer team's practice, and they have raised private funds to put a stadium up there. That'll be the only sport. Right now, it's the only sport that's off of campus, and I think all sports, deserve to be treated equally. But it's also paid for completely through private funds.
Okay. Anything else top of mind for you? We're running out of time. What's the first thing you're going to do Monday morning when you get back? Well, maybe the second thing.
Yeah.
Coffee first, right?
Soccer bill.
Right. Soccer bill, is it? Oh, okay. Roger? First thing you're going to do Monday morning when you get back to Pierre?
Oh, it's going to be interesting. Melissa and I both get to go to House Education at 7:45, and we have 4 bills that deal with changing school funding. So I talked to Michelle Power. She's big into special education for a number of years, and there's a special ed funding bill, so I'm going to get some information from her. Before I get there, I need to do a lot of research because these are kind of, even though I'm in education, I'm kind of out of my wheelhouse. I got to bone up and see what they're trying to change and how they're trying to change it, because these things are all tried and true that are in place. So when you try to change something, it could really have a lot of unintended consequences. But that's the first thing I'm going to do Monday.
And now we know what Melissa's going to do first thing Monday.
That's also what I'm going to be doing, exactly. If I could, I just wanted to share a little bit about, we've really been having a lot of discussions about leadership and what it looks like to have professionalism and decorum. We might be clinging to that high road by our fingernails, but we are certainly trying. And I've gotten a lot of notes of encouragement and support from back home, and I really appreciate that because it is so loud out there right now. And there's so many things that are attempting to distract us from the actual work. And the other day I was so frustrated and I just said, I just want to do the work. I just want to do the job and not make the news for another embarrassing kerfuffle every day, right? And so as we're working with our peers, I try to remind myself and others, when we were kids, it was something to strive for, to have discipline over your emotions, to be composed, to not fly off the handle, to not throw a tantrum, right? That's a kindergarten thing. No blurting, right? These are pretty low bar essential things for interacting with respect and civility and care for one another. And what we found is that in society right now, we almost celebrate that. And so I just appreciate the people that have reached out saying, no, we appreciate you, like Mayor Oak, for reaching out and thanking us also, because it is a difficult environment to work in. We're trying very hard to represent you well and keep our focus on the actual job. And so I just thank you for allowing us to do that. Appreciate you.
Well, thank you very much. So we have three Republicans up here. Any thoughts on the gubernatorial primary? So, and a hush falls over the podium. Well, let me return it back to Kirsten here. Thank you all for attending. Thanks for submitting questions, and thanks to our legislators for being so accessible, and thanks to Cool Beans for the coffee.
Don, if I may, and I know we say this every time, we got a lot of people that are always here, but if you're emailing us, make sure you say you're from District 7, from Brookings, right? Because we do get a lot of emails. And sometimes the email will be in the subject line, vote no on X, or vote yes on X. And then not even their name at times, they don't even sign it. What do we that doesn't give us any context. So even if it's a form letter, because one thing I'll let you know, if you're getting on a site that says send your legislator an email, because you're getting multiples of the exact same thing, our email systems automatically think that's junk, right? So if you get something, write us, and in the first paragraph, tell us why it's important to you. What do you think? Because if it's a long email, it's really tough when we're getting so many emails to get all the way down to the bottom. But I tell you what, you tell us at the very beginning who you are and why it's important to you. That's going to click with us, and then we're more apt to read through the whole thing. So please continue to do that. And we do appreciate all of the great comments we get. People always say, oh, why do you do that thankless job? And I tell people in Brookings it's not thankless.
A great point. Thank you, Tim.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. We're very thankful for this opportunity to talk with you and hear your questions. We are planning on hopefully doing this again on February 21st with some District 8 folks available here as well. And as you end your day here, I would encourage you to stop by the Brookings Farmers Market, which is open until noon, just 1 block away. So thanks for being here, and have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you.